Hello, good evening, and welcome to Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you. And Dave, in homage to basketball call, we won't tell people what the trophy final result is yet.
No, I'll be
We'll
wrong.
we'll save that for the end of the show.
Yes.
We'll get through the gump first, and then build up to the final. So let's start on Wednesday. We had a bit of cup action. Manchester Basketball 77, Leicester Riders 85. Zach Irvin with his debut for Manchester. Of course, the interesting one on that is if the league had come 1 second into the game, he wouldn't have been able to play in this one. But because the game never started, he was able to play in this game. Riders an 11-0 run in the first quarter to go from 5 down to 6 up. But actually, there was very rarely more than a shot in this one in the first half.
Yeah, there wasn't. There wasn't. And I never saw Leicester losing, actually. Um, I thought the first 3 minutes of the game kind of summed up Manchester to a T, really. They came out aggressive, made a couple of shots. FJ, they were up 8-3. FJ made a bad spin move in transition, turned it over. Gave up a three to Abercrombie in transition. And I think the next play down, somebody went under a screen on Jackson. And then, and somewhere in amongst all of that, FJ committed the dumbest foul you'll ever
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
but it's by pushing somebody in the back on a made shot. And all the good things they were doing are taken away by all the simple stuff that they're not.
Mm,
Now because of his previous foul trouble, Callum then takes him out on one foul. He does what
mm.
he does occasionally. Which changes the way that they play, you know. And I thought throughout the game, um, Manchester is a team with probably pound for pound, certainly all the way down their bench, probably more talent than Leicester,
Yeah.
um, but not close to the amount of discipline that Leicester had,
Mm.
so, and there's no excuse for this for Manchester in reality because they played them 10 days ago or two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see a team the first time, and okay, you're going to do so. There's no excuse for going under screens on Zach Jackson. Just
Mm.
on. Not, and it happened again in the second half as well. And it's like, why would you even think of that? I also thought that, I mean, Irvin's interesting. I'm not quite sure what he is. He's probably got kind of winning the award for the kookiest shots of,
Mm.
he's got kind of a funny flick on his wrist. So I'm not sure if he shoots it like that because he makes a lot, or if he shoots it like that because he doesn't. I suppose we're going to find out. But he kind of operated almost as a five. He certainly is a five on Friday night, and in this game kind of was a 3-4 type player because Delpesh played a little bit as well. Um, yeah, and I'm not quite sure where he fits with them. But what really got me was I thought kind of, for all that negativity about Manchester, how, at the end of the first quarter, they were in the basketball game.
Mm. Mm.
Okay? Really in the basketball game. Leicester have had a bit of a schedule, obviously going, so they played a lot of games, two games at the weekend. Johnson had hurt his ankle, he was strapped up and playing, so to a certain degree, Leicester were vulnerable. And this is a one-off game. And I thought kind of in this kind of the 6 minutes around the kind of the quarter break when
Mm.
Leicester really had a lineup that hasn't played that many minutes on before. I thought Manchester sleepwalked through those 6 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was really expecting that to be the point. And I think the commentary made the point, and you want Manchester needed to pick up the speed of that game at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they really didn't. And once it just became a normal game, and once Rob was able to get away with those minutes, which he's at times he hasn't, times he hasn't. But in this game, he was able to. And I thought primarily because of Manchester's lack of urgency, then the game kind of intrinsically moved away from.
The run was coming in the third quarter as a
Yeah.
result of it being an even game rather than a Manchester lead and
It
Leicester
was an
trying to
even
come back.
game, but the
Yeah.
numbers suggested that Leicester was shooting far higher
Yeah.
percentages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those generally, unless the team adjusts, those generally even sort themselves out over the
Yeah.
course of
Yeah.
the game. And
And
yeah, that's the way I saw it. Yeah.
it was in the third quarter that it sorted itself out. Leicester hit the first couple of scores to go up 42-51. They then had an 11-2 run to lead 51-66 with a minute to go in the third quarter. And you thought that might just be that. But Manchester with an 8-0 run around the final break cut it to 59-66, helped by a three that was just after the buzzer being given just before the buzzer. Yeah, I thought that would be your response, Dave.
Just,
Uh,
just find it incredible. Just
yeah.
beyond incredible. Look, I know.
Because actually, I don't know who was directing it, but they did the perfect job of basically freeze framing it on his hand with the
Yeah,
light on the backboard on and
I
zeros
did the
on the
same
clock.
thing at the same time in Sheffield. There was one in
Mm.
Sheffield on Sunday, which was
Yeah.
the same. The directors are perfectly capable, but they don't even have to do that if they can't. If the directors don't get it, they don't get it.
Mm.
The point being is there's no delay to the game. It would need nothing more than an alteration to a bylaw to say
Mm.
that end of shift.
Because we'd seen the replay that proved it was late
Yeah.
before the end of the quarter break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So they need nothing more than a bylaw or just a memorandum of understanding between the coaches, which is, okay, we're not going to use replay, but we are going to use it if there's a shot
Mm.
on the buzzer or on a shot clock that the refs aren't sure about,
Mm.
you know. And now we've got lights on most of the backboards, you
Mm.
know, that helps even more, makes it even more
Mm.
uh, crazy that it doesn't happen. I don't know why it doesn't happen. My suspicion is it might be something to do with the fact that nobody really gives a toss,
Mm.
other than the coaches, and the coaches don't have the say because it's the owners that make the rules,
Mm.
and there's a lot of other stuff going on. That suspicion is kind of exacerbated by the league chairman tweeting out that no one took any notice of the rules in the summer
Mm.
over the week. You know, it's like, well, okay, but we're all saying that it's not hard.
Mm.
You know, if you can manage to change your eligibility rules halfway through the season, I'm sure somebody can send an email saying, "Can the refs just please have a look at the screen just to check if a basket's in time?" Because when Kenny Johnson makes one on the buzzer on Sunday to win the cup final, and
Mm.
not sure whether it's in or not, you could be it could the degree of embarrassment caused to the competition could be so great that you'll never be able to show your face in public again. But no, we'll wait until after it's happened. We'll wait until there's a problem. We'll wait until teams have burned through all their licenses, and then we'll change the rules.
Mm.
It is utterly negligent. It's just negligent. It's unfair on the refs. It's unfair on the coaches. It's unfair on the players. But it is just negligent, and it is out with every other professional sport that I can think of now. It's not. Well, no, it's not. We're not talking about clever kind of getting ahead of the curve or
Mm.
anything like this anymore. Everybody has challenges now. Basketball, Euro, everything. And yet, because, we've got far more important things to consider than the product of the sport, then we'll just wait for something awful to happen. And
Mm.
then we'll wring our hands and say, how did it ever happen again? And I will be sat there saying, I told you so, just like you will be. And
Mm.
it will do nothing for anybody
No.
at all. So, yeah, and that was the third quarter, not first quarter. But
Yeah.
getting back to the
I've just got to say, if by the end of the show, Keedy Johnson has hit a three on or after the buzzer in the trophy
yeah,
final, that will be
yeah.
the greatest Nostradamus we've ever seen. But
Yeah, it will be. As you probably gathered, guys, we are recording this before.
yes,
Uh,
it's Saturday afternoon and we're doing the Friday games now, and we're going to do the trophy final as and when Dave has a signal in Philadelphia, I think.
yeah, I guess so. So yeah,
So back to
uh,
the game.
yeah, about the game.
Threes from Abercrombie and Wright pushed it out to 14. Manchester with an 11-2 run. They had it down to 76-81 with 2.5 to go, and Thompson had just got two quick fouls, so he was on four fouls. But the decisive play of the game came between the 2 minute and the 1 minute mark, where Leicester got four consecutive offensive rebounds, bled a minute off the clock, and then Wright scored at the end of it to push it back to 9.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two things, isn't there? One, I mean, to beat Leicester, you have to win. You have to win when Thompson isn't on the court. You
Mm,
have to win those minutes, and they didn't. Shelton held it down quite well in this game, and as I said, there's a little bit of a run around the quarter break, but you have to win those kind of minutes because when the guys come back in, if they're if they're fresh enough, you expect them to clean up the game. That's exactly what happened. You know, the rebounding thing at the end was just, there's no way that the depth that Manchester have, right, and the players that they have, and the athleticism that they have and the size that they have, that with 2 minutes to go in the game, they can give up 4 consecutive offensive rebounds. That's losing basketball. I don't care. Somebody has to go get a rebound, right? Now, that's credit to Leicester that Leicester do, but Leicester did it because they've got guys who understand the meaning of who understand the significance of the possessions at the end of the
Mm,
game. Now, I'm not saying that the Manchester guys don't understand the significance of possession, but they're not acting as if they understand the significance of the possession. So you get Abercrombie crashing, you get Wright crashing and getting cheap rebounds. These are rebounds that are there to get. They're not all kind of ones which are landing in Thompson's hands.
mm,
They are there to get. They're being beaten by energy. They're being beaten by enthusiasm, and they're being beaten by guys who've kind of demonstrated that they have the clutch gene. Some of them,
mm, mm,
and you win games, and you win games on the road in particular by getting stops and getting rebounds.
mm.
That's how you do it. And if you happen to get four off it, I mean that killed, as you say, that killed the game. And there's no good reason other than the fact that
And it wasn't the points that they could have not scored at the end of it. It's the fact they took a minute out of the game in doing that.
yeah, which in the world of 14-second shot clocks
Mm,
is strange, isn't
mm,
it? It's rare that it happens, but it's just every single one is like a balloon. It deflates a bit
mm,
further.
mm,
Every time you don't get the ball, it deflates a bit further. Everybody looks at the clock. The clock seems to be going faster. Leicester was smart. They kicked it out. Maybe they didn't have any looks on the offensive rebounds to score, so they kicked it out. They got themselves another look. They're all in the right place. They're all where they're meant to be. Therefore, they can all crash, without risking giving stuff up on the other end.
mm,
I just thought, yeah, I'll not say it was a fake comeback because Manchester have so much talent that you do think that they can go off at any point. But they didn't create quality looks throughout that game.
mm,
They didn't. I mean, the first half they did not treat Thompson like he's Thompson. They just went at him.
mm,
And I'm sorry, nowadays you got to look around the poker table, and if you're going to Charles Thompson, you got a bit of an issue.
mm,
They're switching. And also when they put their smaller lineup on and kind of played Irving at the five a bit, or KO at one point was guarding Shelton. That was a hole as well,
mm,
you know. But you got to be going at Johnson. You got to be going at Abercrombie. You can't be. You got to be picking your switches and not to think. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm going to go one on one at Thompson. It's just I don't know what the advanced numbers are, but I'm pretty darn sure they're not very good.
no, no.
And So yeah, so I just thought it was a team that had an understanding of the significance of the game against a team that really didn't. That
Mm,
was my impression. I'm not saying they didn't think it was important, but Leicester still hurting from losing the semi-final. They want to be in
mm,
a,
mm,
that fuels you. And that was a big game to them, and I didn't quite get that kind of impression from Manchester. Didn't
mm,
get that degree of energy and desperation. Quarterfinals, knockout games, desperation games. I didn't see that from Manchester.
mm. Ashton Langford, 15 points. Irvin, 5 of 6 shooting for 12 points. Miller and Mitchell both had 11. Jackson, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Wright, 14.7 rebounds. And Hunter, 14 points and 5 assists. Let's go to
Oh,
Friday. Yeah.
and it would be the irony to end all ironies if after about 15 years, so he finally beat Leicester to get into a final, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it would. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dear mate. Yeah, we've lost 40 in a row, but we've been saving it up for these
Yeah,
two.
for these two games. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. Well, look,
One of them was a draw.
one of them was a draw, yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
not.
and then the
Was
second
it
leg was
Gabe
how many?
McRae? Was it? Yeah.
25, 30,
Yeah, they Leicester won by about 40, I think, in the
Yeah,
second leg.
exactly.
Um, Friday night, we lost a game to I forgot the name of the storm now. Erwin or something,
Some
whatever it was.
Irish
Yeah,
name, because they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have English names on storms anymore. I'm
yeah.
very.
Well, I think isn't it who calls it first, and it was hitting Ireland first, and that's
Most of
I
them
think
do, though. Anyway,
yeah.
just
So we lost Caledonia against Leicester, and I should imagine actually both teams were probably none too disappointed because
I would
Leicester
agree with that.
Leicester looked a
Leicester,
little bit out of gas by the end of Wednesday night, given their
they need.
schedule, and Caledonia obviously will want a bit more time, a bit more Johnny time, and a bit more resources if they could. I should
Yeah,
imagine.
given that the amount of Leicester maybe not a gas and they needed 600 miles worth of it to get
Yeah,
a ride in a storm, but it was a red storm, so I mean you can't
yeah, yeah. yeah,
that. But as I say, yeah, I don't imagine that Saturday morning football parents kind of, whew,
yeah, 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 yeah.
God for
Exactly
that.
that.
Bloody crazy.
So let's
Um,
go to the two games that did take place. Sheffield 87, Cheshire 85. Scott Lindsay and Ricky McGill in for Sheffield. Atwood was still out for Cheshire. White had a mask on from a broken nose. Holden apparently a groin injury. He was absent as well. It was an even start, but then Sheffield with Lindsay and McGill coming into the game went on a 16-0 run around the first quarter break and led 27 to 15.
yeah, and apparently the floor's a bit wet there as well because it delayed the game for about 15 minutes,
Oh
didn't it?
yeah, I didn't see. I saw it was delayed, but I didn't understand. I didn't
There was a
hear
lot of
what it
people.
was.
There was a lot of people wiping stuff on the court, so
Mm,
I'm assuming it was something to do with some dampness on the court.
mm,
Is this country really going to dogs? Can nobody
mm,
build a roof? We got no roofers
mm,
anyway. Yeah, I mean, even with a bit of um adjustment in relation to personnel, like Sheffield have had two out, two in effectively. If you see Cheshire without Holden and without Atwood, you have
mm.
to playing at home. You have to think this is a game we have to win.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's not necessarily because it's just two of their players, but the usage of those guys, particularly
yeah.
Holden, is so high that there's a lot of possessions to make up for Cheshire. And and Sheffield with the kind of, yeah, as you say, with the boost of Lindsay's interest, and he's clearly kind of a G League player. He looks like a G League player. He's kind of got that size. He kind of moves down to the corner to shoot the ball like a G League player does.
Mm,
They're very, very um, specific about their spacing over there. The G League's a funny league because basically you're there to fill a role. And the rule is that, the guys that we think are going to go and play in the NBA for us, they're the ones who are going to get the ball.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody else is going to spread out, and run the floor and do the little things and knock down enough shots and stand in the corner. And if you knock down enough shots and if you play good enough defense and you're 6'6" like he is, then you're not going to be taking anybody off the dribble. But if you shoot 43% and you from the 3-point line and you're a good defender, you might get a call up as a kind of 3-and-D guy.
yeah.
Otherwise, he's going to be in the G League for 5 years. And that's kind of where he was. So obviously teams have had a look at him, but he hasn't quite made that jump. That doesn't mean you're not a pretty high level for SLB though.
Mm,
Um, and obviously McGill, I mean, yeah, Ricky, um, for whatever reason, is worn out his welcome in Poland. But mega talented player. We know that.
mm,
Some of the stuff I saw him do last year in the flesh on multiple occasions. I think it's right to say he's an acquired taste. He brings certain. He's a high usage guy.
mm,
At times he frustrates you because his shot selection isn't necessarily he's so good he can make, or he thinks he can make any shot he shoots,
mm,
which means you don't necessarily get the highest selection of shots. And occasionally he throws the ball away. And so he's always been quite a high turnover guy. But in relation to being able to see every play on the floor, wow, absolutely. And they've got a lot of talent to surround him. So
he had 5 assists in the blink of an eye, didn't he, when he
yeah,
came on?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he had the ultimate SBL BBL veteran returning veterans
Mm,
game,
mm,
which is if it's a rookie, they're in trouble,
mm,
right? Because they got to work out the refs, they got to work out what's going on, their head is spinning, right? If it's a guy who's been away from this league and come back, they know the score, so
mm,
he knows that he's coming in and making an impression. So I'm going to make an impression start off by passing the ball, which is what
mm,
point guards do, which he clearly is. And then he knocked down a few threes. And we know his three is kind of up and down. He can make 5 or 6. We've seen it multiple
mm,
times, or he can be over 6, but he knocked down a few. And he had that game, which is like, okay, I'm here.
mm,
Problem's over, right? You don't need to worry about it. As I say, you got about 3/4 of that, and then you got a quarter of something else in the game. But I mean, Cheshire were very close to imploding in this
mm,
game.
mm,
And as basically Sheffield, took it to them in the second and third quarter. And
mm.
unfortunately, Cheshire, the way they are built at this point in time, um, defensively, it is going to be tough for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it really is.
Well, the
Odin's one of their better defenders as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
6'6" with his rebounding. So him not being there really hurt them as well.
the point that nearly tipped them over the edge of the implosion was when Austin was seemingly fouled. Even Mike Tuck was like, "I think that's a foul."
Well,
It
tell you
wasn't
what,
called.
apparently,
Groves,
common assault.
yeah,
You know,
Groves landed on him, and he ended up getting a tee for his protestations. There was a bench tee as well. I couldn't quite work out whether it was somebody else on the bench had complained or whether he'd got it after he'd been subbed out and was going to the
well,
bench.
I mean, I was a bit concerned. I was a bit concerned about refereeing in this game from the first 3 minutes when the most blatant goaltend was almost missed.
Almost, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dear me. There's literally it comes off the backboard. It's about to go through the hoop. It's knocked away, and then
Mm,
and two of our refs are just running back down the court as if
mm,
nothing's happened. While Ben Thomas is having an absolute yeah, with whatever it is when you aneurysm.
mm,
Sorry, he wasn't having an aneurysm, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
Quite
yeah.
rightly. I mean that was the that's such a those players matter because it's 2 points and they got to take the ball out, or they're running down the court and your guys are all complaining.
Yeah.
And they always 4 point swing players.
Mm,
So at that point, I'm thinking, oh Jesus, this is going to be fun. The non-call on Austin divide description, I'm afraid.
mm,
You can't. I mean, there was a little sign at the end when one of the refs was trying to explain it to Ben that something about going up straight or something like
mm.
that. It landed on top of him,
Yeah, yeah.
and then they gave the ball to Cheshire when in fact Austin had thrown it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did.
You
I
know,
did.
you know, so it was like it was, and that's like three, that's right in the middle of the play. So
Mm.
there should be at least two sets of eyes on that from the ref's perspective,
It's
potentially
probably
three,
all three, isn't it, from that?
probably all
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And nobody sees that is a foul. So I know I really felt for Larry on that because you know as a player, you might get a call, you might not get a call, but when, as I say, you're under the basket and somebody jumps up and you head fake and they land on you. um, then it's the easiest call you could ever make. The
Mm,
easiest call you could ever see. So yeah, so that and then had two technicals and two foul shots, so that
mm,
makes a difference in the game down the line, doesn't it?
mm. Yeah.
Although we never thought it would.
No.
And but yeah, just not good. Not good. I mean, that said, Cheshire got the benefit of three foul shots later on, which they probably didn't deserve either. So we'll get to that.
Uh, third quarter, they had another 12-0 run, Sheffield, 6-6-43. I'm getting ready to watch the Traitors at this point. I'm almost switching
My
off.
daughter and my wife are into that, but to be honest, yeah, I'm too honest of an individual. I can't stand all the duplicity.
Yeah. No, I got into it because it was after a World Cup game, Series 1. It was like this. I haven't watched it religiously, but my wife watches it, so I've seen enough of it. So I had to
Yeah,
watch the final.
yeah,
Anyway, no spoilers here in case anybody's still got to catch up. Cheshire did have a couple of runs to get it down to the low teens, but with 2 minutes to play, it was still a 12-point game, and there's almost no way of losing that
yeah.
from that
I mean,
position.
just before we get back to that, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, I'm afraid I did a mess. I put a blue sky, whatever it is, out on this. I was slightly concerned by Nick Timberlake's body language in this game. There was substantial. In fact, the person I thought of was Teddy Allen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there was times he didn't run back down the court. If you watch the very first play or the second play of the game, when Skylar White shoots his second three, when Timberlake's open on the wing, his hands are still up as he's running back down the court. There's a couple. I mean, Cheshire's transition defense at times was like, we'll just wait to get the ball back, and he was the prime candidate. And I think Ben saw that as well because Ben sat him down.
Mm,
You know, so he sat down, and what Ben did was he went with Greg Wild,
mm,
who's not going to, and a couple of the other guys, and let Larry Austin just run the team, and then you had Larry Austin and Tyreek Scott Grayson, who they knew basically Greg's not going to be breaking people down off the dribble. He's going to stand in the corner, shoot threes, and play hard, right?
mm,
So that means that Larry and Tyreek know it's up to them to score the ball to be aggressive. So they became ultra aggressive, and they were able to get going. Now that's because they didn't have the Pouters on the sideline complaining,
mm,
right? And so there's no bad energy on the court. So So I thought he did absolutely the right thing. And sometimes, just because you score 37 one week, you got to bring it the next week. You got to bring your mentality the next week. And scoring 37 one week can actually lead you to, why aren't I getting the ball more? And if it becomes about I instead of about your team,
Mm,
and I'm afraid that's where Teddy Allen got to, then you have a problem. So he did the right thing to sit him down. Um, Sheffield got very, very sloppy even before it got to 12.
mm,
Suddenly, kind of Ricky had three turnovers, and we had live ball turnovers, so they're going down the other end. Larry Austin and Tyreek Scott Grayson will not stop playing.
no, no.
That is the bottom line. You give Larry Austin the ball and kind of a promise of a bit of raw meat over there. Larry is just going to keep going and going and going. Okay, and you've got to channel him in the right direction. Obviously, and Ben did that when he got his technical. He sat him down. He didn't get thrown out, whatever. But he's not going to stop playing. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately, Sheffield kind of did. Not
Mm,
physically, but mentally, they checked out a little bit.
mm, mm,
And Sheffield got 10 players at this point as well. They have 10 players. No one played more than 28 minutes as Prentice Nixon. So they've got people coming in and out, and they're looking at this, and it's 23 points and it's garbage time, etc. And it's not, because it's Larry Austin and Tyreek Scott Grayson.
mm,
And yeah, so we get to the last two. And so yeah, by having the right five on the court, and by playing by being true to their own personalities, that's what brought Cheshire back into the game. Oh, wait, it never brought them back into the game until probably about 4 seconds to go. But
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I mean. That brought them back into the game.
They had to be where they were to get to where they were going to.
Yes, absolutely.
And Dave just touched on it. The observant of you watching on YouTube will notice the frame under Dave and I has changed slightly, just to push you towards Dave's Blue Sky account if you're
All right, yeah.
so desire.
Yeah,
Uh,
sorry, yeah. Sorry, one Nazi salute could be termed unfortunate. Twice looks like carelessness.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
done. Sorry, guys. I
Uh,
guess everybody else is done as well, but it's not for me to tell you what to do.
Mine's on there as well if you want to go follow me as well. I'm still on Twitter for the time being though, and I'll always call it Twitter.
Yeah.
152 to go. Scott Grayson to the rim, 84-74. Groves then misses a three. Scott Grayson hits one, 84-77. Nixon, 114 to go, drives, foul, two free throws, 9 point Sheffield lead. Timeout, advance the ball. Nixon steals it from Scott Grayson. Sheffield then did their best to turn it over, and in the end had to settle for a 24-second violation. White misses a three.
I
Ulf
think we
with,
got we got
yeah,
like 9 points with like what, 55 seconds or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, even for Cheshire, 7 points at Caledonia with 45 seconds to go. 5 points against Newcastle
Well,
with 40 seconds to go. This was
the
this
the
this
one I was
makes it
about,
harder.
yeah, the one I was about to do is Ulf offensive rebound. Austin for three. To make it 86-80 with 27.7 seconds left. So therefore, with 27.8 seconds left,
We're down
it was a
nine.
9 point game. Bonkers, really. Then 21.6. I thought at that point Cheshire, sorry, weren't quite sure whether to foul or not, or to go for the points difference game because they
Uh,
didn't think they were gonna do it, but they did in the end commit a foul. McGill to the line, 0 for 2 from the free throw line. Uh, and even then, Cheshire took a bit too long at the other end. 10,
yeah,
10.6 seconds to go. Austin had missed, got his own rebound, put it in.
yeah,
But because they lost 11 seconds in all of that, you still think, well, it's 4 points and there's not enough time, is there?
yeah.
On the inbound, Timberlake with the steal goes for three.
Let's just
Uh,
go back to Sunday again, shall we? That was
yeah,
a good night.
yeah, yeah.
Look at the two.
And then fouled by Anderson, shooting a 3 point shot. And he makes them all 86-85. And you go, what the heck is going on here?
He wasn't fouled. He wasn't fouled. Jamal Anderson's got his hand on the ball. I'm sorry. I watched the game. You watched the back. You watched the thing. It was, Jamel's face told it all. There's no way in the world that was a foul. Sorry, I just wasn't.
My take on it is that he did enough that
Well,
because
look
it was
at the
steal and
foul.
change possession, and he's gone
Yeah,
up and he's done
a
all of
lot
that.
happened very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get that, But you still have to you referee the defender.
Mm.
What did the defender do? What contact did he make? Well, he didn't make any contact with Tim Blade's hands. He's got his hands on the basketball. So that kind of, but at that point, everybody's in kind of a bit of a daze. So no, you can't
Mm.
difficult to get upset about the call because if you're Sheffield, you've got so many things going on, which is basically the thought of, can we really lose this game? You know. Anyway, but yeah,
Timeout,
they
advance
sort
the
of think,
ball.
yeah,
A second ticks off. All fouls Rotino. Rotino misses both free throws.
yeah.
The rebound comes all the way out to Groves, and he's fouled. 5.1 seconds to go.
Yeah, White could have got that rebound.
Yeah.
White reached and kind of tipped that rebound forwards, and White's got to get two hands on that
Mm.
rebound because they actually boxed it out pretty well. Cheshire, who owned it, had a look at it. They boxed it out. They had Austin on the shooter. They had the two guys against the one guy. It was all there, and White just tipped it out and just straight into Groves' hands. Yeah.
So he goes to the free throw line, and he misses both free throws
At this point,
as well.
their heads are
Yeah.
spinning. Sheffield's heads are just spinning at this point. It's like, it's that saying, that's watching that car crash as it happens.
Mm.
You can't stop it, but you're in it. But you're you're in the moment of it. But everything is spinning, and you've got Groves. Rotino, who doesn't miss, misses two. Groves, who doesn't miss, misses two. Just crazy.
Mm. Austin gets the rebound, but as he threw it down court, Nixon stole the ball, just about kept himself in court. And 1.4 seconds to go, he's fouled. White on the other side of the floor he had a mask on for his broken
Yeah.
nose, threw his mask to the floor and got called for a technical. I didn't like that because that to me that wasn't dissent, that was frustration that they had the ball
Didn't
and they
see
didn't
that's what the
have.
call was. But nobody else has the chance to do that. So why should he be penalised? No one else has
Yeah,
got a mask.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and plus, is it an equipment technical if it's your own equipment? Really? I mean, if you're an equipment, you can't criminally damage your own property,
Mm,
right? I might be able to, if I come round to your house and break a window, I'm guilty. If you break your
mm,
own window, you've done nothing wrong.
mm,
So should he get a technical for damaging his own property? Well, let's be blunt. I mean, this is a 2-point game at this point because they've had two ridiculous technicals on the
mm,
base, two foul shots that Cheshire didn't get when
mm.
Austin is hammered under the basket.
Yeah.
So I think I have a degree of support for his frustration, albeit to be fair, if technicals were measured like they are in the NBA, whereby you get a fine every time you get one, I think Skylar would possibly keep it a bit more quiet,
Mm.
don't you?
Well,
Because he's
my
got
thing on
shout.
it is it's on the other side of the court, so it's got the foul is nothing to do with him, or the turnover is nothing to do with him. But you've just gone to a situation, as you say, he was the nearest Cheshire player to getting the rebound on the previous two
Yeah.
missed free throws, and that then they then dodge the bullet of the two more missed free throws, and they get a rebound and a chance to potentially
And
win the game.
if he throws it in the crowd, so be it. But he's not.
Mm,
And look, the bottom line is, as I say, you know, you get the calls right, and the frustration doesn't happen. You don't have an
mm.
excuse, right?
But
Now,
I think his frustration was that they almost had a chance to steal a win here, and they've just lost it.
my frustration, right, is that ultimately that's a nice, easy technical to call. Also, he's blah blah. Everything's going off. It's the away team. He's throwing something in. They've lost the game anyway. Look, let's assert our authority. Let's call a technical on that one. Okay. What about the two earlier on?
Mm,
What about the two earlier on when Austin's hammered under the basket
mm,
and you basically make an error, then you double down on the error, then you triple down on the error, and it ends up being a 2-point game,
mm,
right? Get those calls right, and I might respect a little bit more about giving technicals out willy-nilly like that.
mm.
Because that's just, as I say, that's just an easy call at that time. And as I say, if he's not, if he, my understanding is if you kick an advertising hoarding, it doesn't belong to you. It's not yours.
Mm.
You're damaging the equipment. You're affecting the equipment of the game or whatever. If you bang the backboard or anything like that.
Throw the ball off the wall. Teddy
Throw
Allen
the ball
did
off the
that
wall.
last year,
Yeah,
didn't
throw the
he?
ball off the wall,
Yeah.
potential risk to anybody, whatever, so be it. If it's your own equipment which nobody else has got on and you throw it on the floor, then you know, I'm far more interested in that you refereeing the game as opposed to watching people as they go to the bench.
Mm.
That's my side of it. I wasn't impressed, as I say, I wasn't impressed.
So they've now got three free throws because they've got the technical and the two that for being over the limit. they
Yeah.
missed the technical free throw. So that's 7 free throws
Oh.
in a row missed in the last 21.6 seconds, well, 20 seconds to that point. Uh, Nixon makes the first of the foul shot free throws, and then he tried ridiculously to throw it quickly off the front of the rim
And
back to himself.
this was just nuts. I mean, this was just like watching. I don't know what I was watching. I mean, Nixon's competitive. He's smart. He's a pro. He's not a rookie. Um, when I say their heads are spinning
Mm,
at this point, I mean, okay, there's an argument you might want to deliberately miss it,
mm.
right? Because
But
you're,
shoot it.
but shoot it so it goes up there. Just I mean, if you're going to deliberately miss it, shoot it so that it's the rim bounces off softly.
Mm.
Instead, you actually give them the opportunity to have the ball, um, and you never really have much chance of hitting the rim with a shot like that because you took no time to aim it up. You just threw
No,
it at
he just threw it. It was literally, it came into his hands, and I don't think I described it the first time. It came into his hands, and he sort of threw it like a chess pass, trying to hit the front of the rim to bounce it back to himself. It missed the front of the rim, it hit the backboard, and came all the way back out to him. But of course, if
He
it
threw it
doesn't
without
hit the
aiming it.
rim,
It wasn't that he was aiming it. He wanted to do it so that the rebounders didn't know what was coming.
yeah,
Well, but the point about missing it is that it isn't about you getting the rebound. You
it's
don't
about it's about them having zero point 0.7 of a second to throw the ball the length of the court.
to rebound it and
Yeah,
throw the ball
yeah,
length.
yeah, yeah,
So it doesn't matter who gets the rebound. What
yeah,
matters
yeah,
is who hit the rim.
yeah,
And
yeah,
he took no time to ensure that he had the rim.
yeah,
So I'm not going to, there was a 2 point game at that point, wasn't it?
yeah. 2 point game. Yeah,
I get the deliberate missing. I'm not sure I'm entirely in favor of it because, then you lose on a heave
yeah,
if they get the rebound. But it's point seven. I'm not going to be, you're not going to be overly critical. I mean, it's a reasonable gamble, as opposed to giving them a chance to advance the ball and get the other end. But at least do it properly.
yeah,
At
yeah.
this point, their heads were just like, ooh. And if you remember, it was when you were talking about, the talent that Sheffield had a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about who's kind of, I was saying I like Leicester because I like
Mm,
their mentality and I like their discipline. And my knock on Sheffield was fragility.
mm.
Right, that was the one thing you've seen a little bit of, not the talent, not the size, but they have these fragile moments in games. I mean, this was full on meltdown.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't, ultimately, that stuff has to be rectified. If it's not rectified, it's going to hit them, maybe not in this game, but it's going to hit them down the line.
Mm,
And to win the league, you got to win 25, 26 games, maybe not, maybe 24, but you got to win all of those games. Now, they won one at Surrey the week before,
mm.
which you thought, well, maybe, hey, this is a chance of we've gotten over the hump here. This is the way it's meant to be. Shows us how we're going to do it going forward. And then they kind of regressed in this game. And that was the biggest kind of,
Mm.
whoa, what just happened there type of thing.
So it's
Because,
point 7 seconds on the clock,
yeah,
and obviously because he's not hit the rim, Ben can call a timeout
yeah,
and he can advance the ball to the front court, which he does. They run a lob play from Austin on the sideline to Timberlake, but it was massively overthrown. It
yeah.
came off the backboard, and who stood right there ready for, well, not quite ready for it, unfortunately, but stood right there in the right place? David Ulf. It falls into his hands. He's got a chance to,
It falls
to
into his hands because he doesn't give up on anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Even with point 0.7 of a second, you might think, well, I'm going to set the screen, and if Timberlake catches it and makes a
yeah,
shot,
yeah.
it in,
He
right?
he he has to assume that the ball will never reach him because it has to be a horrifically bad pass. Well, not
But
horrifically. It
here's the
has to be
thing.
quite a bad pass to hit the backboard and fall to him. There's no other way he could
That's
get the
not what
ball.
he's thinking. He's just thinking, I'm going to go and crash because that's what I do,
Yeah.
right? That's what I do. That's what I'm trained to do. That's how I do things. I'm going to be the one who's more active than anybody else. You never know what might happen, right?
Mm.
Because as you say, anybody who's given any thought to it would think, well, there's no chance of me getting a touch because as soon as what guy touches it, there's no rebounds to be
Yeah.
had.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I may as well give up. But that's not him,
No.
right? So I got all the time in the world for him in
Yeah.
relation to
Yeah.
that. That's what he
So
made that call.
so you never know what might happen. Happened. It falls into his hands. He's got to quickly get it up because there's only point 0.7 of a second, and he missed it. I know he wasn't expecting it, but he still has to score from that, doesn't he?
Well, yes and no, and I'll tell you why. Because it's point 0.7 of a second.
Mm.
And the ball comes down, you got to get yourself up as a big guy, you're not sure what 0.7 of a second is. You got the ball out of his hands on about 0.1,
Mm.
0.1.5, and so it's coming out of his hands quicker than he
Yeah.
wants it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the problem. That's why he missed.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah.
if he'd had
If there
one
was
point
1.1 second, 1.0 seconds, I think he scores.
scores because he has a little bit more time to collect
Mm.
himself. But at
Mm.
0.7, you're thinking you're catching it down here because it's not right up there. It's just
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
off. Then you're having to get it into your other hand and you're having to get it up there. And the last thing you want to do is to be 2 tenths late. So I'm not down on him at all. I think he
No.
made a hell of a play. He gave them a chance. I'm a little bit more down on Timberlake, who when when he didn't get the when he ran under the pass and the pass was too high for him, kind of kept running with his hands in the air like he was pissed off.
Mm.
I wasn't very impressed with him because not that he could have made any difference, but it's like, oh no, what's going on here? Um, but I thought Ulf made an unbelievable play and just
Mm.
just couldn't finish it. So be it. That's what happened. To be honest, God knows what would have happened in overtime. I mean,
No. No.
you could see it was tough to see Cheshire winning, but Sheffield might have been so far gone that they might have.
Mm. Mm.
Um, the other thing that got struck me was, it actually was a really effective play. And it did get me to thinking as to why coaches don't use the backboard a bit more in those kind of situations to draw up stuff. Because it's the best misdirection you can think of.
Yeah. 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 I guess
You have
it,
everybody running to the
it's
front.
quite a skill to throw it perfect weight off the backboard, though, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's quite a skill to throw a perfect way for a guy to catch it and lay it up with
Yeah.
1.7 of seconds to go. So if you were to run guys underneath the backboard, if you run four guys under there and throw it in, but deliberately throw the pass to the top of the backboard for your guy to kind of loop around, that could be I've never seen that done,
Mm.
but it happened. Sometimes the most ingenious stuff happens as a result of an accident,
Mm. Mm.
and that was an accident. And I think if I was in an SLB locker room or SLB practice court this week, I'd be saying
Practicing it
you could
just
run
as good.
something like that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to see if there's any actual viability at
I
all.
think I would do it at the end of the shot clock rather than the end of a
Oh
game.
yeah, oh yeah. I'm not saying at the end
Yeah.
of the game. I'm saying
Yeah.
practice. You'd see whether
Yeah.
you'd move people around a bit, but
Yeah.
the backboard is kind of your sixth player, isn't it? It's a sixth
Mm.
pass, an extra
Mm.
pass, and the clock doesn't start. So.
Mm.
Yeah, I enjoyed Tuck's commentary on most of this actually because he was having to yeah, he was having to say some things which were absolutely kind of spot on in relation to some of the refs, some of the calls.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, Groves, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Nixon, 15. Clay, 15 and 10. They were 10 of 21 in the end, 11 missed free throws. Scott Grayson, 18 points and 10 rebounds. White, 16. Austin, 14 points and 13 rebounds. Which leaves us now to Manchester basketball 85, Surrey 89 is 76. Irvin into the starters, DeBose as well. Mitchell was out. Afeje off the bench. Hunt was out. Lawrence, who didn't play very much in the last game, was back. Manchester couldn't score early on. The 89ers out to a 4-12 lead after
Well, they couldn't
five
score
minutes.
at all until the ref scored for them.
Mm, mm,
The first basket that Manchester got in this game, it was difficult to contemplate, really.
mm,
There was a layup attempt whereby a Manchester player may have touched the rim, may have touched the backboard. I didn't see it, but the ball came off basically the side of the backboard, was absolutely nowhere near the rim. And to the point whereby even Jason Swain was commenting that Dan Clark was having a say about it.
mm,
And it's like, how was that in Lloyd's face was a picture. It's like, well, how was that interference? Dear me. Anyway, so that didn't, my view is that always, the calls generally in games should start off well and get worse as the game gets chippier
mm,
and gets harder to ref, and the refs get a little bit more mentally fatigued because as the game's going on, everybody gets mentally fatigued. But that was bizarre. We then kind of Manchester are again playing without really any urgency. They've introduced Irvin into the starting lineup as a five-man,
mm,
which I was, obviously Del Pesh is hurt and he doesn't want to play Effigy and he wants to find minutes for Irvin, but it's difficult to see that being something they're going to run much moving forward. It's only a second game, so I was a bit intrigued by that. Certainly, Irvin hadn't really shown much ability to defend fives against Leicester when he played a little bit of five. And in this game, what it meant was that Surrey basically started throwing the ball to Adelican.
mm,
and
Mm.
finding him getting the basketball in every which way because that was where the mismatch was. Now, the advantage of playing Irving as a five is that you can switch the screens easier. So, you take away a lot of Surrey's kind of screen and roll game and drive and kick game because basically every time that a guard is having a screen set for him, Irving just switches out onto him. That's fine. But what that means is what you lose is when Surrey readjusts to that and and throw it down inside, and the Delican basically scores every time. And Manchester's offense, was not great. They were a bit uncertain as to which shots they would shoot. Jason called out Ashton Langford for not shooting open shots, and he was quite right. Um, and it kind of it was the perfect way to start a game on the road,
Mm.
basically. Sorry,
Yeah.
you got the ball inside, you scored the ball, but they struggled to sustain it.
Mm. And a 12-3 run around the first break level. The scores at 25-25.
And
And
that's kind of happened just on that. That kind of happened because unfortunately, Surrey struggled to score the ball without their starting unit in particular without a Delican in the game. To win on the road, Surrey have to be pretty good. I mean, by pretty good is they have to be nearly perfect in relation to the talent that they have, and they need Jalen Ray to be at it.
mm,
And because of what Manchester were doing, if they're switching all their screens, and there are going to be times you can't throw it down low, what that means is you have individual mismatches. Okay, that means that you have to use Gooden and Ray in particular are the guys who are going to be expected to exploit those mismatches. Gooden not quite so much because Gooden likes to shoot it on the screen and roll coming off the screen, and if the big guy's not up there, he will pull up and shoot it, or he'll rock into a step back and shoot it. But Ray is just a nailed on individual scorer. Yeah, he is just like he was at London. He is just kind of a lights out individual scorer. If he gets the right matchup, he can score on anybody anytime. And he didn't bring it. He didn't have it in this game.
mm,
That's just one of those things. It happens. You're not going to have it every game, but they don't really, particularly with, as you say, with Hunt out as well. They didn't really have much of a backup to that for scoring. You know, Lawrence played a little bit, but again, he's a kind of setter up and takes his moments. Um, Steele played 30 minutes. He shot the ball twice.
mm,
So where are your shots coming from? Where are your scores coming from? Cholovinskas did okay in this game. He made some plays. But again, he's not a volume scorer, not a volume shooter. So unfortunately without Ray going and without Gooden being overly impactful, they were unable to score with their second unit.
mm,
And Manchester got conversely had John and Carey, who really came into the game with a lot of energy and made some plays. And if either of those guys had been on the other team, this result might have been different.
yeah.
They got
Yeah.
more players than Surrey, probably got more money, you know.
Mm.
So that's where in a game like that, that's where it matters.
Ashton Langford 3, Captain Ato run to push it to 55-47 in the third quarter. They got to 10 early in the fourth, and then James got his fourth foul as well. And Surrey never really quite looked like they were going to get back into it.
No, they didn't because again, as I say, they needed in reality it's a lot to put on him, but they needed Ray to go ballistic.
Mm,
Delican was doing his job. And the kind of the corollary of what I said about, them throwing the ball to a Delican a lot. He's 13 to 16, he has 26 points, he scores efficiently.
mm,
They only got 19 threes up in this game.
mm,
Normally they're driving kicks, they get more than that. The ball goes through a Delican, he throws it to Steele in the corner or one of the other guys in the corner. They only made four.
mm,
Um, Surrey, it's pretty solid bellwether that if Surrey make 4 3-pointers in the game, they're unlikely to win.
mm,
The old phrase that we used to use is they can't score enough twos to beat us. That
mm.
was the situation in this game. They made um, 4 of 19 from three, and what they scored 76 points, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
not they're not a shut down, lockdown defensive team. They don't have the depth for that. They don't have the size for that. They're pesky and they will compete. So they're not going to win games with 75 points, I don't think, anywhere, certainly not on the road. And they just didn't quite have enough. Manchester, as I say, they're kind of in flux. Obviously, Delpesh didn't play this game as well. So Dubois. Oh, by the way, the Manchester announcer, sorry, you're doing my head in. Sorry. I need to know, is it Ian Dubois or Ian Dubois?
The bows.
Thank you. Well, tell the announcer who's calling him Dubois, like he's out the streetcar named Desire. Okay. Or Junior Madut or Junior Madu?
Madut.
Thank you. Pass the message on, please.
Mm,
Because if your hometown announcer can't pronounce your star players' names, I've got a problem. It's the type of thing that shouldn't irritate me, but because I am a nerd, it does. Anyway, and we get a bit of that in Newcastle as well, but it's how it generally at least gets the home team players right.
mm,
A little bit away, sometimes we do. I accept entirely struggle. Um, so yeah. So you have DeBose starting, and they're basically playing three guards. And DeBose, Jason alluded to it in the commentary, some players play better when they start,
mm,
more rhythm. Um, and DeBose it'll be interesting to see where they start with DeBose, National Langford in future, and Maddox, because it's a three-guard lineup, basically. Obviously, Mitchell wasn't playing in this game, meant they had to fill plenty of minutes. When you have to fill that, and people think, oh, star player's not playing, that's a problem. But then what happens is Carey gets some more minutes, John gets some more minutes, they take advantage of those minutes, and they're the beneficiaries. Mitchell comes back, the whole rotation changes again because they got a lot of players.
mm,
And you got to find a way now of getting Irving in as well. But they just had enough in this game. They had their depth and their physicality wore Surrey out, and without Surrey being able to make shots the way that they had at London previously, when they just never stopped scoring. They had 95 at London to beat London. Without that, they didn't have enough to get back into the game in Manchester. And KO got going, didn't he, in the third and fourth quarter?
mm.
Finally,
Yeah,
KO
yeah.
got knocked some shots down as well.
KO top scored with 18 points for his team. DeBose, 17.7 assists. John, 14. It was 15-2 on the points off turnovers. Delican, you've given his numbers, but they bear repeating. 26 points, 13 of 16 shooting, 16 rebounds, 4 blocks. Gooden had 14 points and James had 12. Delican is the first player to go for 25 and 15 in almost a year. William Lee did it February the 1st last year, 26 and 17. And the last player to do it versus the top flight team, so I've taken CJ Getty's out against Dunfermline, I think it was.
Oh, hey,
Uh,
that was a hell of a Dunfermline team.
yeah, yeah.
Just
It,
chill. Don't disrespect those
yeah,
Dunfermline lads.
yeah. But
They,
there's not
we
many
clammed.
CJ. There's not many CJ Gettys in the Scottish
we
basketball
had to
league. I'll say
fight.
that.
We had to fight every step of the way
Yeah,
to that
yeah,
65-point win. I'll tell
yeah.
you.
The last player to do it in under 31 minutes versus a top flight team was Rashad Hassan in April
That's points
2015.
rebounds. It's been done points assists, hasn't it? I'm
I
looking.
didn't look at points assist,
Right.
but yeah, I would assume it has. Yeah. So before we get to the trophy final, let's quickly run through the league standings. London and Sheffield joint top with 10 wins and 4 defeats. Leicester just behind them, 9 wins and 4 defeats. Cheshire 7 and 6, Newcastle 6 and 6, Manchester 5 and 7, Surrey are 4 and 9, Bristol 3 and 5. A lot of games to play.
A lot of games to play.
And Caledonia 2 and 11, and the domination of home teams versus away teams
Yeah.
continues. There is only 2 teams sub 500 at home, and there's only 1 team above 500 away.
And that is indication of parity
Mm,
because you get to a point whereby teams expect to win at home
mm,
and don't expect to win away. They're
mm,
trying to steal one on the road instead of. It's also um, parity and congestion of games.
mm,
Because they also you have to win at home because they're the fans, they pay your wages, the owners are happy. You can lose on the road when there's 35 of your fans watching on YouTube and
mm,
them in the gym, but ultimately it's all going to be forgotten next Friday night or Saturday night when you're playing at home again.
mm,
What you can't do is lose regularly at home because then the punters get unhappy. The Facebook message boards light up with the normal nonsense,
mm,
and the pressure kind of builds. So um, so there is kind of an increased um, pressure, not an increased expectation to win at home.
mm,
Um, I think that really does make a substantial difference. Um, and I think it's going to, what it does do is make it for an interesting denouement, doesn't it?
mm,
Because 10 and 4, 10 and 4, 9 and 4, 6 and 7 and 6, 6 and 6. You know, there's a lot, as you say, there's a lot of games for everybody to play. Even
Mm.
the 6 and 6 teams got to play 20 more games.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's a lot of games. If somebody gets it right, then puts a bit of a spurt on, then they could be away. But if it keeps going the way it is, it just needs that one team just to kind of realize that this is what we're in it for.
Mm.
We have the chance to win this, but we have to do it now. The best chances, I think, it should be London, but I'm not certain. London got a lot of new guys to the league. I'm not sure they quite get the prioritization of winning it. Talent-wise, it should be Sheffield, but their fragility, as we talked about. It should be Leicester because Leicester have been through it, because their coach has been through it before multiple times. So he understands the battle of winning every game and the importance of every single game, not just taking a loss on the road because you're
Mm.
taking a loss on the road, which I'm afraid has happened. So it could be anybody. I struggle to see it being Cheshire, Newcastle, or Bristol, because Cheshire don't have the defense. Newcastle have the European thing to focus on and have not showed that they can stop anybody on the road. So they're the epitome of the home team, away team situation. Give up 75 at home, 100 on the road. And they've got the European stuff, as I say, whereby they're going to be in a quarter final and potentially even semi final if they could get through that, which is really going to impact on the mental energy of the players. And Bristol, yeah, 24 games left. It's tough to see them winning 20 of those 24, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
given the
Mm.
schedule they're going to have. So probably the top three, but who knows? Who knows?
Mm. So let's move to the trophy final. Dave, you're in Philadelphia. There's no way of passing it up. Did you see the game? Was it on the plane? How did it work, Dave?
Yeah, it was on the plane. It was on the I was able to get the BT, the British Airways internet, which was all right. It survived. I got most of it. A couple of times it cut out, but got enough of it to it kind of was sandwiched by episodes of Law and Order on one side and other
Okay.
episodes of Order on the other side. Just
You mean the
to
whole
my
plane
phone.
wasn't watching the SLB Trophy finals? It's a bit
No, sadly,
disappointing.
no, no. I'm not sure it quite has that cash yet. But yeah, absolutely, it's a new one. No, it was good. It was one of the more the happier flights I've had, I think.
I bet it was. I don't know. Did you see any of the women's game, Dave? Or
I didn't, sadly, and I
no?
haven't got back to it yet because I've been asleep. I understand it's very close.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
I'll just quickly run through that for the audience. It was Oaklands 59, Caledonia 61. Caledonia started 10-4, and they kind of stayed ahead for the whole game. And from the midpoint of the third quarter to the first minute of the fourth, they went on a 16-3 run, led 37-49. And it looked done at that point because when you got
yeah,
37, the idea that you're going to outscore somebody by 13 in the rest of the 12 minutes. Look done. But Jim Saker, the chairman, was on interview at halftime with Drew, and he said, "If Beckford Norton's on the court, you've always got a chance." And it was very salient because she did actually drag a team back into the game. And then final minute, 54-58, Rob to the rim, couldn't score. Beckford Norton, 17-footer, top of the key, had missed one similar to that just a minute earlier. Makes it a 2-point game. Timeout, no advance, 21 seconds to go. Taylor Adams' foul goes 1 for 2, so it's a 3-point game, 56-59. Timeout, advance the ball. McRae with an incredible shot, top of the key. I mean, real gutsy
I'll
shot
watch
with
it.
a defender in the face. 14 seconds to go, 58-59. Timeout, no advance. They let Adams get the ball. She fouled again. This time she goes 2 for 2, 58-61. Timeout, advance. Took a bit of time, and then Caledonia gave Beckford Norton the lane to the basket, and she missed, but in fighting for the rebound, gets fouled. 1.5 seconds left. Got to make one, miss one. Hope you get a rebound.
Did you not need a three though?
No, because they cut well, yes,
Down two.
sorry, they do
Okay.
need three. So you got to make one and then get the rebound and get a putback to
I should
make
drive
it.
into the basket if they need a three.
Well,
I'm
I
thinking.
that bit I couldn't quite work out. It seemed like
Right.
they took
Okay.
too long to then be going for a two, but they
Right.
were.
Okay.
Beckford Norton swishes the first one. De Silva and Battle had come in specifically for the rebound. Beckford Norton perfect miss on the second one. De Silva gets the rebound, just couldn't lay it in. You really got to see it,
I
Dave.
will
It
watch
was
it.
it
Yeah, I
was
gather.
that close.
I see Prentice Nixon was was courtside as well, getting some tips on how to miss a foul shot. Eh?
Probably, yeah. And
I will watch it,
there,
so I will actually know you've told me. But sorry,
the,
girls, sorry, ladies, I'm afraid no, unfortunately.
even if it's
Um,
just the last 12, 10,
yeah,
12 minutes is worth it because it was great drama. And therein are the fine lines. First loss of the season for Oaklands, Caledonia celebrating, and but for an offensive putback, it might have gone to overtime, and who
yeah,
knows?
Oaklands have taken on a few of the London players, haven't they?
Mm. Yeah, Beckford Norton and I'm trying to know. De Silva wasn't at London last year. I'm trying to think who
No.
else it was, but
Uh,
they've got a squad. To be fair, now
yeah, yeah.
they're good. Beckford Norton with
Well, let's just
15.
sorry,
Go on.
go on.
McRae
Go on.
14, their real problem, 12 of 25 from the free throw line, 38% from the floor. And Mathilde Demange, 17 points, the MVP, and Adams with 15.
Yeah, and let's be happy for Caledonia. A good news story.
Yeah.
That
They
looks
got
top.
they got their sword through security somehow. I'm not sure how.
Oh my goodness, I do often think to myself, if a police officer pulls that car over
Mm,
on the way to the game,
yeah,
it is an offense to have a possession of a blade article in
yeah,
public,
yeah.
right? And I do,
So actually, Dave,
have a
the
reasonable ex now if you can show you've got
yeah,
a reasonable excuse,
reasonable
not
excuse. Yeah,
guilty. But is it well, we're taking it to a basketball match to celebrate the kind of the warriorhood of Scotland
yeah,
800 years ago.
yeah.
Is that going to run as a reasonable excuse? I don't
Uh,
know. If I
uh,
mean, I'd run it.
it's
I'd have
interesting
a
because
trial.
a couple of weeks ago, doing a little bit of voluntary work, was at a primary school where there was a sort of mock magistrate court trial with a
Yeah.
young boy who'd been caught carrying a knife, and whether he deserved to be found guilty or not. And the young kids thought he had a reasonable excuse, although the lead magistrate, who was actually a lead magistrate, said if it'd come to my court and I had the solitary decision, it wouldn't have been a reasonable excuse. So
Yeah, which is exactly why we advise people to elect trial to the Crown Court, where
yeah.
you have kids like that, as opposed to magic already decided. Yeah. What was his reasonable excuse? You remember?
Well, basically,
Sorry,
it was
we're
he was
diverting here, but why
yeah,
not?
he was in the park with another kid, and the other kid had got this knife because somebody else who was bullying him told him to get it,
Yeah.
and he was about to get in an argument with the dog owner, so he passed the knife to the young boy who ended up in court. And the young boy only had it for a minute, and then he gave it straight to the police officer when challenged. And was that enough of a
Yeah,
reasonable excuse?
I would say that would yeah I would acquit him, but I'm a defense lawyer.
Mm,
I would if those facts were proved,
yeah.
if you're satisfied. Now the twist with
There
reasonable
were some
excuses,
witnesses who
yeah,
just about corroborated it.
yeah, and then the twist with reasonable excuses, you've got to show you have to prove it on the balance of probabilities. So
Mm.
he has to show that it's more likely than not that there's a reasonable excuse. Prosecution don't have to prove that it wasn't. But yeah, so next time people think, oh, lock up everybody carrying a knife, it's
Mm.
circumstances, things happen.
Yeah.
Things,
They might have they
anyway,
might
the
have just
sword.
won the SLB Betty Codona
Yeah,
Trophy.
the sword. I even worry a little bit about the little thingy on the coach's kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that little kind of sharp. Because that's a pointed instrument, and a pointed
It is.
instrument is
That
also
was the other learning I took from that is it doesn't have to be what you consider to be a knife. It has to be a pointy, sharp instrument.
yeah, exactly yeah. So so anyway, but I think to be fair, it would be unlikely that given the legal difficulties Caledonia have got into this year with some of their employees that won't be taken any further.
Yes, indeed. So now that people have racked up an £800 bill on the old basketball call, we'll come
Yeah.
to the men's trophy final. Newcastle Eagles 97, Bristol Flyers 78. Trey Pulliam was ineligible. The rules are 2 weeks beforehand, I believe, and he wasn't registered before that.
Yeah, rules are rules, Dan.
Indeed, yeah. Thomas Edwards,
Albeit,
albeit.
go on.
Go on, no,
Albeit,
no.
well, albeit, this is the problem. Rules are rules. I've got
Yeah,
no
yeah,
problem with
yeah.
that. And albeit about a week ago we changed some rules because
Yeah,
according to
yeah, yeah,
the league chairman, it was important to get put the best product on the court.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And given that there was um, uh, certainly something happened 2 years ago where Leicester played a player
yeah,
who'd signed 3 years beforehand,
yeah.
it does rather
The
suggest,
the
and that
the the it was the opposing team apparently said he could play, and the erstwhile CEO agreed to that. But my
they
sense of it was that makes a rod for the back. But to be fair, there have been other players in the past who have fallen foul. I remember, when was it? Tariq Black, was it something like that? Leicester signed when their point guard
wasn't
broke
Tariq
his
Black, it was
hand.
Mike Black.
Mike
Mike Black
Black, that was it. Mike Black, and he
wasn't
he
very good.
he couldn't
Yeah.
play in one, and there was somebody else I can't think of now who couldn't play in it. But I'm with
Um,
you. The rule is the rule, so we stick to the rule, and we never bend the rule just because we feel like we ought to. I think the mistake was
which
made 2 years ago rather than.
and the mistake was made 2 years ago, and the mistake was made last week.
Well, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry
yeah,
because
yeah,
that rule has been bent.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
that rule
yeah,
has been changed. If you start, and this is the problem with what we're talking about with governance. Once you start messing around,
yeah,
all you do is you create rods for your own back.
yeah, yeah.
And that's what they've done. Now, one, I'm happy Ken Newcastle won, so I can't. No one can kind of come in
Mm.
here and say he's whinging. But secondly, I'm not sure that it really would have helped them to have a point guard who only played 2 games to play anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Although Bristol did have a point guard who basically only played about 2 games, doesn't he?
yeah, and I
Because
don't
he
think
got
that
injured
overly
in
helped
between.
them.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think that overly helped them because it gave them more moving parts, and the
Mm.
more moving your parts you've got in a final, the harder it is
Yeah,
to
yeah,
to match. More.
yeah. It
But
would have been
still,
interesting to see what Mark would have done actually in that regard, because I referred to it as a bit of their trophy lineup, but it was the five that I think it was the five that started in the semi final against Leicester that
yeah.
started this final, and
But
actually,
the reality was, it was the team that got them there.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And they've played more games than anybody else. They played 11 games in the competition, so it's
yeah.
not just kind of a one-off win 2 games and win the competition. And when when you have a situation whereby you can't play a guy and you can always turn that to your advantage with your
Mm.
team and say, look, this is us.
Yeah,
They can do what they want. Other people can stop us doing this or stop us doing that or rules,
yeah,
all this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
You
yeah,
create kind of that siege mentality.
yeah.
So the whole thing actually kind of worked in Newcastle's favour, I think. But against that, as I say, you can't have the chairman of the league going on Twitter individually last week saying that we change these rules for the benefit of making sure we get the most talent we can on the court,
Mm.
and then turn around and stick to a rule whereby he can't. And the reality is, I mean, there were some exigent circumstances with Pulliam,
Mm.
insofar as he was registered and sorry, he was signed on the Thursday. It was FIBA that were the delay was. It wasn't
Yeah,
anything to do
yeah,
with Eagles.
yeah,
So, if they wanted to, they could have changed. But
yeah.
I don't agree with changing.
No,
But I didn't. But more than that, I don't agree with changing last week.
no.
It's
Yeah,
it
yeah,
meant
yeah, yeah,
it was just it is just and the fact that they've tried to come out and I'm going back on this, and I'm sorry about that for everybody. But the fact that this is it's kind of almost wonderfully subversive that this happens the week afterwards
yeah,
because
yeah,
it demonstrates the
yeah,
problems
yeah,
that you create by
yeah,
not having a wider view of the whole situation.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
As much as we bemoaned FIFA for their 14 seconds, Adrian Silva missed 6 months of playing Premier League football because a fax was 14 seconds
yeah,
after when it should have been.
yeah,
Anyway, let's go back to basketball. We've gone on all sorts here, haven't we? Faxes and
yeah.
swords.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Good job. We've already got plenty of basketball in the bank before this. Coro with 2 threes. Alan Ikens 5 in an 11-0 run that had the Eagles up 16-6 inside 3 minutes, and we were getting a bit worried then. But by the time Micah Coro hit his fifth three-pointer of the game to end the third quarter, it was
First quarter.
31-19, and we were reminiscing about Charles Smith and poor old Emmett Colbert.
Yeah, well, there was. I'm sure Rose switched on to him a couple of times.
Mm.
Anyway, but
Couldn't have
Rose
done
was
any
okay.
worse.
They could have done any worse. Um, there's a number of things about this game, and I kind of feel for Bristol a little bit because I've I've been on both sides of this game,
Mm,
right? Um, I've been on the side, you say, that the Charles game, various games, generally when we were playing Glasgow,
mm,
whereby we would come out and would be up to that point whereby you basically know you're going to win
mm,
in final, the game against Plymouth. And also been on the game where we played against Leicester at the O2 and they
mm,
absolutely mullered us to the point whereby within about 13 minutes we were on to plan D
mm,
and we didn't even have a plan B,
mm.
we were just going, we were literally just running, trying to, what now, ended up with lineups on the court that hadn't played together all season because we just
Mm,
could not find anything, that would work. And at that point, the belief drains away from the players.
mm, mm,
And also, and the kind of the momentum of the game builds up a steamroller, which you can't, as a coach, you constantly be. It's like whack-a-mole. You're constantly trying to change something else. And what you then find is a kind of the extra level of involvement, the steps that you're taking to try and impact the game. That just actually throws your players off a little bit more because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
they're getting out of rhythm. So the repeated substitutions actually hurt you, and and you haven't really you're not sure kind of what style you're playing, and then the players' heads start spinning.
Mm,
And that all came because of Mike Okoro, but it
mm,
all came primarily because of Newcastle's game plan. Because Newcastle's, basically they had a free sight of Bristol 2 weeks ago.
mm,
And Bristol have just started this using this big lineup to start, whereby they've inserted McCormick into the starting lineup with Lewis and Robinson
Robinson.
in the two. Yeah. So, who's the three and who's the four? I'm not really sure because really, realistically, McCormick's a four,
Mm,
Lewis is a four, Robinson's a five, Sherfield's arguably a three, and Johnson's arguably a two. Well, but he's been
mm,
playing a bit of point guard. So they've gone big, and Newcastle, didn't really adjust to that very well in the first game. But in this game, because of they adjusted to it very well, and they adjusted it to it at the offensive end. Now, every you look at Micah Corral, he goes off, he makes shot after shot. Wow, what a player! All of this stuff, but
mm,
why does that happen? Okay, you go back to watching the first quarter of that game again, and Newcastle are a team which is playing basically without a point guard, without a true
yeah.
in the name of the Knight's bringing the ball up the court,
Mm,
but he isn't running screen and rolls to throw the ball the other side of the court. He isn't being
mm,
shifted. He's primarily score. And so what Newcastle are doing, what they are is a team of probably three or four very, very talented individual scorers and a lot of role players.
mm,
Okay. Those scorers are one-on-one scorers. I mean, Akaru, Knight, Alan Aikens, and maybe James off the bench as well. Yeah, guys who can score. Okay. Four kind of similar type of players. So the ball's not moving up. So basically, what they're looking to do is to attack the matchups that they feel comfortable scoring on. And you go back in the first quarter, Newcastle put a target on Owen McCormack's back in
mm,
this game
mm,
because every single time there was Bristol was switching all screens. They've got a lot of size. Um, they can switch all screens because Robinson is 6'6". He moves his feet quite quickly. So if a guard gets matched up with Robinson, they like their odds. He's quite good.
mm,
The same with Lewis. He's long, he reaches, he moves. McCormack's not that defender. McCormack's your stand in the lane, take charges defender.
mm,
It's not foot. He's a positional defender, not a foot speed defender, and he's not been starting, so he hasn't really been subjected to the degree of scrutiny. His defense hasn't been subjected to the degree of scrutiny otherwise will be. Well, every single time, the first possession of the game, they got Al Aikens a layup, he missed. Then they got an offensive rebound. Okoro missed a layup. Kenny Johnson comes down the court, he gets an and one. The next time down the court, they get an open shot for Okoro again, knocks it down. Every three of Okoro's five threes were on McCormack, where Bristol had switched from McCormack onto Okoro.
mm,
And one was off an offensive rebound from Ward Hibbert, and the other one was when he switched on to Walsh, who also
mm,
isn't Lewis, isn't Robinson,
mm.
you know? And the reason Okoro makes those shots in my mind is because he's been told by his coach that they're the shots he has to shoot.
Yeah.
If he gets McCormack or Walsh on a mismatch, he has the green light to shoot it. And when guys have got green light to shoot it, that's when they make them.
Mm,
Yeah. And when they went the other way. When Alan Aikens got the ball, he was looking to attack McCormack as well. He got to the lane once, made a layup. He got an and one on him as well, and it was very very surgical what they were doing. Now Bristol have ways around that. Firstly, McCormack didn't do much wrong.
Mm,
Right? I'm not getting at McCormack. I'm not saying it's all his fault. He was in position that he was where he's meant to be on the scouting report. Because on the scouting report for Owen McCormack, if he gets matched up on Mike Okaro, he can't step closer to him because he's got no
mm,
chance.
mm,
So he has to give him that space, yeah. So he did everything. But what once he made one or two, what Bristol have to do then as a team is they have to shrink the lane.
mm,
And they have to make those guys who are lining them up, be it Alan Aikens or Peter Cor, they have to see a second defender.
mm,
And which allows McCormack or Lewis or whoever, or Walsh, to go further out there to pressure a little bit more, knowing that there's help behind. The one time, if you remember, on the right wing in the first quarter, when I think Louis came in, he pressured Okoro.
mm.
Okoro took two dribbles. He was at the rim. He made the layup that you saw in the
Yeah,
highlights.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't a question of the individual players not doing anything egregiously wrong. It was a question of some very gifted individual scorers, and it was to start with, it was a Okoro and Alan Aikens. In the second
Mm,
quarter, it was Knight.
yeah.
Because even at that time, Knight got a layup early in the game where he just dribbled the ball down the court. They switched Kenny Johnson onto him,
Mm,
in the post to Leo, 6 foot
mm,
3, 6 foot 6, 6 foot 2. So it was all about Newcastle manipulating mismatches and Bristol defending those mismatches one on one.
mm,
And so they weren't scoring on Robinson, they weren't scoring on Kendall Lewis. They were scoring on the guys that they thought they could score on, and they were comfortable doing that. And then it kind of flows in because then Spencer comes in and knocks down his shot, and
yeah.
so that the confidence flows. And at that point, and then Bristol suddenly, Leslie Smith comes in the game with a 5 minute mark, and he's out at the 4 minute mark. So they're
Mm,
being moved. So Andreas is trying to find something that is working.
mm,
Sheffield's out in, then he's out, then he's in, then he's out again, and it's that I know I've been there.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, what do we do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
They
because there is you have to react so quickly. You can't leave it. Well, we'll leave it another 2 minutes. You've got to do it now. And yeah, I
but
mean,
when you do that,
you mentioned
you,
Seneca Knight. He had 10 in a 12-2 run. It's 43-25, and the world is crashing in on Bristol at that point.
yeah, yeah, that's right, absolutely. And by doing something, you're also, if you're a southern guy, it's like 15-6
Mm.
and go back to the first quarter because the first quarter was the game.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know that they took over in the second quarter, but
yeah,
the first quarter caused the heads to spin, right?
yeah,
And that was Okoro. That's why Okoro was the MVP because he took over the game. He set the tone for the game. He did it in a way that Bristol weren't expecting. But if you take a guy like Sheffield out the game after 4 minutes, right, or Robinson out the game after 4.5 minutes, in a final, you're not tired after 4.5 minutes. You get
No,
your
no,
second
no,
win.
no, no.
Right? But you have to do something. But then they're not maybe getting back in, and
Well,
they're not maybe.
Okoro played the first 12 minutes. I wonder how many times that's happened this season. Probably none. But
I don't
but
think it's
but he's torching them,
maybe
so you don't take him out of the game.
maybe the Leicester game, maybe the
Maybe,
semi-final. I don't
maybe.
know in
Yeah,
that game. Maybe when
yeah,
you had 35 in that game.
yeah.
Um, that's right.
But
Oh yeah.
again, because he's torching them, that's why he's in the game.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
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 you ride it as long as you ride
yeah,
him as long
yeah,
as you
yeah.
can. And that's right. I mean, the way he plays, he's a physical kind of guard, so he does get. I think
Mm,
he does wear down. So you got to be.
mm.
I understood why he did come out eventually. Whereas when we had Charles, we could just keep
Yeah, yeah,
playing him because
yeah,
he was
yeah, yeah.
speed. You know what I mean?
And
He just
and
didn't
and
move.
Charles turned 21 into 39, and Okoro turned 17 into 19.
He did, and although that Rule got that absolutely right, that was very impressive because he didn't force
Yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah.
really, really during the game. But just getting back to there's where there's a success, there's always a failure. Um, the play in the middle of the second quarter where Sheffield came on, he was tying his shorts and he got the
Mm.
lob.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Now he's not tying his shorts. That's a nervous thing,
Mm,
right? That, and then you watch it. Andreas calls a timeout, bollocks him, comes back
mm.
out. He comes back on the court. He's tying his shorts again.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's all about being comfortable in the environment,
Mm,
being and getting into the flow of the game.
mm,
And all those guys will be better for that game because they'll have been through it now.
mm,
Now, Newcastle, I think you said in the commentary, Ward Hibbert's playing his 12th final.
mm.
Obviously, Defoe is playing God knows how many, 30.
30.
Spencer's been in three or four as well.
Spencer's been in
Um,
more than that. He's
More than that,
no, sorry, four. Yeah, he was 2 and 2,
yeah,
four.
four, something like that, and Newcastle have less pure rookies
Mm,
than Bristol. I mean,
mm.
their only real rookie is Alan Aikens, and he plays like a 35-year-old
Yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean in relation to that. So whereas Bristol have, Robinson a little bit, Robinson and I think Sheffield's second year out in Denmark in the Division Two college. So he wouldn't have played in many games in front of 9,000 people.
Mm, mm,
Um, and then that puts everything onto Keedy. And
mm,
Newcastle had a plan for Keedy. And
mm.
watching Newcastle's defense on Keedy frustrated me that they gave up 98 points in Bristol
Yeah,
2 weeks
yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it could because suddenly they're all connected, suddenly they're helping in the right place, suddenly they're making the lane narrow, they're making him go left, they're doing all the things, they're not fouling him, they're doing all the things you have to do, and then have to do to frustrate him. And the real question for Newcastle now is, right, okay, if you can play defense like that, you have a chance to be in the top four
Mm,
at the business end of the year if you can sustain it. Whether they've got the mentality to do that every single game, I don't know.
mm,
But yeah, so the game, Knight took over as a scorer in the second quarter. Um, Bristol got more and more tentative, I thought.
mm,
Um, in the final, you talked about score. I mean, you talked about in the finals, shooters generally don't have great games. The one thing I did fear for Bristol was that I don't think they have any pure shooters.
mm.
I know Walsh is shooting 40%, but you'd still, if you had to characterize this game, you'd characterize this game as a
To the
driver
rim.
first.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Sheffield is a shooter, but he's a streaky shooter.
Mm,
He's a guy who, you've seen him go 8 of 10, or you've seen him go 0 of 8 or something like that.
mm,
He gets them up very quickly. That means if they're going in, it's great. If they're not, it's not so good. Johnson would prefer to penetrate than shoot the ball. And McCormack is probably their only pure shooter
mm,
on that team. Lewis can make a few. And generally, it's the best shooters make shots in that gym. But
mm,
the guys who kind of maybe shoot three a game and shoot it at 34%, they're
mm.
the ones who don't in
Yeah, yeah,
finals.
yeah.
You get a guy like that do that. So that was my fear for Bristol. And that kind of bore out. But more than
Mm,
anything, once they got behind, they didn't really have it.
no.
And until halfway through the third quarter, when Kendall Lewis said, "I've had enough of this," and
Yeah,
he tried to dunk it on Del Pesh.
yeah, yeah,
That was the first bit of they were down 30 by then.
yeah, yeah,
That was the first bit of real positive intent. Real kind
yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
what that plays. He got a steal, he got a dunk in transition, but that's not the same until about half court. Like, I'm not running this. You go away, bang, I'm going to fake him, bang, I'm going to the rim. I'm going to
Yeah,
dunk it. And he was the one guy I thought who really came out of it well
yeah,
because
yeah.
he never quit, and I'm not saying the others quit, but mentally he was strong enough to kind of try and say, no, I've had nothing, this ain't happening to us.
Mm.
And by that time, it had already happened.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you say, Newcastle scored the first 9 points of the third quarter, led by 30. And if it wasn't over at the end of the first quarter, it was over at that point.
Well,
Uh,
coaches don't think so, and people
no, no, of
37
course
up
not.
on the plane don't think so. I'll tell you that
No,
now.
no, no.
Um, because you got to keep playing. You have to keep playing every possession. But yeah, I mean, Knight made an impossible kind of step back three in the second possession of the third
Mm,
quarter.
mm,
Again, individual talent, individual scoring talent. And at that point, and again, it's kind of the at this point, Bristol are playing almost like they're hypnotized.
yeah.
They're playing in as well as I do that if you're going to be 25 down at the half or 21 down at the half, something has to change. You
Mm,
have to play with more energy. You have to play more up pace. You have to put more possessions back into the game.
mm.
You have to be Cheshire, basically.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Bristol can be that, right? Bristol can be that. They can go up and down, right? Um, but they kind of didn't really have that. Firstly, they were frustrated by Newcastle were very good in relation to their shot selection, not turning the ball over that much,
Mm,
and basically shooting the ball, 7 seconds or less to go on the shot clock. You
mm.
talked about nearly getting the 8-second violations.
Yeah, yeah.
they so that takes away momentum for comebacks. But also probably the two best players on the day were Louis and Lewis. Louis is obviously a guard that's still getting used to him.
Mm,
I think in 3 weeks' time he'd have been the starting point guard in this final.
mm,
This final came 3 weeks too early. And the problem with Louis is Louis is not the guy who's going to lead you back from 30 points,
mm,
25 points down, because he plays at a certain tempo.
mm.
He's a shifty guard. He's not your head down. He's not Cam Holden,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? He's a shifty guard. He's going to get to his spots and get shots for other people. But, you're looking at the shot. They're running 15, 18 seconds off the clock before they're able to
Mm,
get a shot.
yeah, yeah.
And you need, and then they got a little 5 point run when Ward Hibbert made an inadvised decision to drive, and Stuart calls a timeout. And then you have Samuels come in, and Samuels gives them something by making a couple of shots, primarily because Newcastle were letting them shoot the ball.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
getting the scout report. But by that point,
Stop.
25 to
Yeah.
16 doesn't even become a fake comeback, does it?
No, no,
It's just
no.
kind of a little bit of tepid resistance.
Window dressing for the future records is basically what it is. Knight had 22 points. Okoro was the MVP with 19.6 assists. Alan Aiken 16 points and 8 rebounds. At Cheshire was it last week? Last week before the game, I was talking to Mark, and he was worried about the shooting in that gym because we've
Yeah.
all been there for years, and he said, "Have you got some old stats so I can have a look at it?" So I emailed
He
him.
needs to get a life.
Emailed him. I don't know, last 7 years worth of games
Yeah.
at the
Jeez.
NIA, as I still like to call it. And
Yeah.
and the Eagles shot 14 of 33 from three. So I'm claiming an assist on that, Dave.
Right. Okay. I noticed they did practice. Both teams practiced the night before.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
never got to practice the night before there.
No.
No. That made a difference. That does make a difference, I think. Because so yeah, well, yeah, okay. So you're gonna go and get Mike's golden ball off him, are you? For
Well,
that.
just
Um.
a small cog in a big wheel.
Yeah. There was, but I mean,
But the point is, 14 of 33, you'll win a lot of games shooting at that clip.
you will, particularly when you make like 9 of them in the first half, and the
Yeah,
defense
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
And they Spencer made a couple, which were big. James made one.
mm,
Alan Aikens made one. Long made two. So it wasn't just the one guy who was going off. It was kind
mm,
of what Newcastle have done all season, which is basically they've taken turns to score.
mm.
One guy scored. I mean, they're only in the semi. They only got to the semi-finals because Alan Aikens scored 10 points in the last 3 minutes in the
Yeah,
game at Sheffield.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You know, and basically scored 5 times in a row down the court.
Mm,
And I mean. I think they probably deserve to win that trophy. Ultimately, they played more games than anybody else. They've come out of I would say, was the toughest group given what London's situation was in September, and there was only
mm.
4 teams in the other group.
And what
Um,
Cheshire's situation was in September.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. They've then went and basically beaten the undefeated Leicester team, or the
Mm,
Leicester team that won 6-0.
mm,
Just but beat them pretty well over 7 quarters and
mm.
nearly
Yeah,
proved to win the eighth.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then they've turned up and they've won the final. And Okoro, through the whole thing has been the player of that tournament. Even in the very first game of the season for Newcastle, he knocked down a three against Sheffield with 35 seconds to go when they were up by
Mm,
one, and then
mm,
of course they're losing. And so all the way through, so it's kind of good karma that I think that he got the golden ball. I think he deserves it. I just think he might be a bit too good for us now.
mm.
Worried where he might go next year. Um, Oh yeah, and what do you think of the referee? Was there much going on? I mean, there was a bit of aggro in the fourth quarter, wasn't there?
Yeah, yeah. I did. I I didn't see what Evan did for the technical, and we didn't get a replay on the
Well,
unsportsmanlike.
sportsman, I watched it back. It was a hand in the back of a driver as he was as
Okay.
he was off the ground. So it
Yeah.
was kind of a one hand push. It wasn't. It's because it was a hand, not a shoulder. That's probably
Yeah.
they've thought. Ed's obviously thought he's in the air. That's why
Yeah.
it's unsportsmanlike. No play on the ball, and it's a
Yeah.
deliberate hand on the back of
It
Delpesh.
was one of them because I didn't see the replay. I was like, "Wow, it has to be quite a high bar when he's up on the thing." And then
Yeah, well, he was
jump the whole jump ball thing was why
brilliant.
don't you let go of the ball? What are you doing? They're blowing. Why do you let go of the ball? Let's not be but
Yeah, yeah,
but but they both of those guys are not ones that you think will step
backed out.
backwards in that situation. So it's a bit of a
Yeah,
nothing,
right.
I think.
And then Samuel's had a little push. It was interesting what you said about Samuel's now and Aikens. I think you were probably right. Um, but I don't know what Samuels has a little push on Aikens' hip, just a little hand on his hip to kind of
Yeah,
push him away. And
yeah,
I'm like, is that the ball's dead? So if that is a foul, it probably is an unsportsmanlike foul
yeah,
because it's an attempt to,
yeah,
it's an attempt to provoke a situation. It can't really be a normal foul because the ball's dead. But
yeah,
Alan Aikens gives him the one hand to the chest and
yeah,
pushes him
yeah,
over.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's definitely unsportsmanlike foul.
Definitely, yeah, yeah,
But there's
yeah.
no there's no
It's
other
that thing of it's a reaction to an action, even if the action
yeah,
wasn't at the same level as the reaction.
and there's no other calls they can make.
Yeah,
As I say,
yeah,
for Sam, you might think Samuels is a bit hard for him to get an unsportsmanlike
mm,
just for doing that. What else could it be? It's either nothing or
yeah.
it's an unsportsmanlike.
If there'd
You know what I
been
mean?
no reaction,
Uh,
he wouldn't have got an unsportsmanlike foul, though.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, and then Walsh, I think Walsh probably said something on the lines of "ball don't lie." That's
mm,
my guess.
mm,
As he's walking back, he walked back into court, past Ian McDonald, and Ian McDonald did a double take.
mm,
Didn't do it straight away. He said
mm,
something, and he looked. Ian obviously Ian translated whatever Evans' language is into Scottish,
mm.
and then and decided that no, I'm not taking that. I'm going to tee you up. Whether he
Yeah,
had to, nobody else would have seen it. No one would have known. But without knowing what it was said, possible
yeah,
to say.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, it don't matter, does it?
No,
You know,
no, it
it
was
doesn't
all
matter.
over by that point
And at least
anyway.
he was allowed to back in to get his medal. I was chuffed about that
Yeah,
because he
yeah,
went to the
yeah,
locker room.
yeah, yeah,
Um, the rule that don't count.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think after the game you're allowed. I don't see why not.
all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah.
If it was a disqualification, maybe I don't know. I don't know. Is there a difference? I don't know. Don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
It's
think I
only
gave the Bristol.
crap like that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I gave the Bristol scorer, which was
Yeah.
Lewis, 18 points, 7 of 9. He was the only one in double figures. 20 turnovers, 23 points off those turnovers for Newcastle.
That hurts them, but more than that, as I say, Newcastle scored 97 points and they only had 18 assists.
Mm.
They
Yeah,
they
yeah,
played in a certain way. The ball wasn't being flung around San Antonio Spurs style from corner to corner.
yeah. Mm.
They relentlessly picked on the players that they wanted to pick on offensively and defensively. They packed the lane. And you have to give a shout out to Ward Hibbert for 8 points, 8 rebounds,
Yeah,
six
yeah.
steals, 5 assists, one of
Yeah, it was
ten
the best
shooting,
one of 10
but
game you've
20.
ever seen.
Yeah, utterly disruptive. And I wasn't sure I mean, I'll be frank, I didn't think he could guard Johnson.
Mm,
I thought the foot speed that Johnson had would be too much. But
mm,
with the because he's a physical defender, not a quick defender, and he looked the first play of the game, Johnson catches him and gets the hand off, and he's at the rim and he's an and one, and you think he's not going to be able to do that. But he wore him down over the course of the
mm,
game
mm,
by picking him up full court, and with Johnson not being an absolute natural point guard,
mm,
I think that was a struggle. So he is, yeah, he's a major piece of what they do.
mm,
I thought you lot did all right. Yeah, Rowe
mm,
was quite good actually.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
One thing about Rowe, he's very good at talking about what it feels like to be on the wrong end of a blowout.
I feel really bad. Can I apologize to all Plymouth Raiders fans now because I just they were relevant points. It just happened to be two of the low moments in Plymouth history but they were
Well, to
relevant to
be fair,
what
the
was
wor actually
happening.
you say that, but I mean the worst moment was when the Australian barman turned up and they got beat by 40 by Leicester,
Well,
and
there
and
is that. I didn't pull that
that
one
was
out.
actually worse.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
You
it
know,
was. No, it wasn't worse. It
but
wasn't worse than the Tigers game. That wasn't worse than the Tigers game.
nah, true. I wasn't there for that Tigers
49,
game.
103.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Tigers were
Yeah.
good, but we beat them. Um,
And
but
then
no, I
here
thought
I am apologising, and we've just thrown in another bonus little miserable moment for Plymouth fans. I apologise on
no,
Dave's behalf for bringing that one up.
no, I don't. Too far
Mhm.
away. But no, yeah, it was. I mean, it's interesting where you go now because as you said quite correctly, Bristol have 24 league games. They've got
Mm.
two semi-finals. They're basically out of the European competition. I don't think they can qualify, so that's kind of done. I think they might have one more game left.
I know they're going to Estonia today. They've got a game tomorrow, I think it
Yeah,
is. Because I was
so I think that's
because I
it.
was thinking, man, that's got to be a brutal trip just after that game to be off to the
Yeah,
far ends of
but
Estonia.
I don't think they can qualify. So in reality, they've got 27 games plus the playoffs to fit into. I think it's basically 30 games to fit into February, March, and a bit of April, losing a week in February for the thing. It's about 13 weeks. I mean, it's going to be nuts for them.
Mm, mm.
And the other thing I should say about Bristol is that that was a game that they really missed Thomas Edwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thomas Edwards is their Ward Hibbert,
Mm,
and not the guy who kind of holds things together, gets you a
mm,
rebound when you need them. He's the type of guy that everybody else looks at and gains strength from,
mm, mm,
mentally, and they didn't have him. And so you have to kind of throw that in as well, for all the players who are playing and aren't playing, that, Thomas Edwards is a massive miss for them. But when we lost finals, the next 2 weeks was great. The
mm,
focus was great because every pro player can take a punch and
mm,
bounce back because that's what they've done their whole lives. The problem is when you have to take another one and another
mm,
one.
mm,
So the test for Bristol isn't going to be the next 3 weeks. The test for them is going to be what happens if they get knocked out of the semi-finals
mm,
of the cup by Sheffield. If they
mm,
can't get over that, because at that point, then players' minds will start to turn
mm,
to next year, and the resilience is hard. Then it's hard to keep getting up off the ground because the season isn't that long. But the
mm,
first one, they should be fine. And I'm just, as I say, it's like Leicester losing that semi-final to Newcastle. That was their first punch,
mm,
and they've taken, they take that and carry on from there. Um, Newcastle, who knows? I mean, I think it's interesting, because what I saw in that we haven't covered the European games
mm,
on this show, right? But what I saw in the final was a little bit of what we've seen in some of the European games, particularly the
mm,
home ones against
mm,
good teams. Um, whereby you think actually this team's got quite a high ceiling.
mm.
When they are, to use a horrific phrase, locked in, when they're motivated, when they're
Yeah,
all
yeah,
aware
yeah.
of what they need to do, when they're playing for bigger checks next year, whatever it is, whatever the
Mm,
stage, that kind, that there's, at the end of the day, they're 6-1 in EMBL and they're 6-1, 6-6 in the SLB.
yeah.
Now, EMBL isn't great. I'm not saying it's fantastic, but there are some proper teams in there.
Mm,
And to be 6-1 in that competition and potentially win that group suggests there's something about them.
yeah, yeah.
You saw a little bit of that today. It's a little bit
Yeah,
like I saw you saw a little bit of that today, yesterday in the final. The question with them is where their priority is going to lie,
yeah,
and whether Mark can get them all um, kind of locked in for another 20 league games, or whether they go out to Estonia, I think, to finish off in a couple of weeks, and then they're in the quarterfinals, and that's going to take up a lot of kind of mental energy and a little, because I think they realistically now will think that they have a chance of getting into the final four in that competition. If they get
yeah,
into the
yeah,
final four,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah.
So, so they have kind of a different challenge. They will be flying for a couple of weeks, but then again, they have to play London on Friday night at home.
Mm,
And London will be hurting because Newcastle beat London 2 weeks ago
yeah,
in that
yeah.
gym. So they could be knocked down very quickly. This is better than having to go to bloody Worcester every time you win a trophy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is what
yeah,
we had to
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Well, sort of in time. Win the cup final, go to Worcester, have them beat the crap out of you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's I'm more of a fan of that. But so that the first final of the season, you were desperate to win
Mm,
because far more so, I always found it far more so than the playoff final.
mm,
The players used to love the playoffs final, playoffs for everything, win the playoffs.
mm,
It's what we've done
mm,
in America. We get to the final.
mm.
So for me, whether you win or lose the playoff final after half an hour, it was just relief.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Over.
yeah, yeah. It's all
Everyone's
done. Yeah,
flying home.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You know?
yeah,
But after the first fight, you've still got 4 months to go,
yeah,
or
yeah,
3 months to go
yeah,
with these guys, and you're trying to manage them and deal with each and every one of them in a different way, and you're desperate to win it just so you can kind of get your next extra 3 or 4 weeks of kind of buzz
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
carry
yeah.
through the next 3 or 4 weeks. And if you and as I say, the ones that we lost, the cup finals that we lost, we were fortunate. We had good, smart, tough guys playing
Mm,
like Chapman and Huffman and those type of guys. because we normally we won the cup finals and we lost the trophies or the playoffs. But the one that we did lose, we came back so much better.
Mm,
So Bristol, that's going to be a real test. It's going to be a real test for them. But I do feel for them a little bit. I've got a lot of what Andreas has done over the past 5 years there.
mm.
I mean, the first 5 years you kind of playing with house money because you're a new team, quote
Yeah,
marks.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
you're playing with house money, and he came into the league with his own um beliefs, his own somewhat continental understanding of basketball, the way that they would play, the way the ball would move, the beautiful game, all that
Mm,
stuff. And they stuck to those kind of principles. They signed guys who would move the ball, they had the stretch for, they ran proper offenses, all that stuff, and they couldn't win
mm,
because the league was just so different. And we used to beat them. Leicester used to beat them all the time. And about 5 years ago, he figured, I was not say he figured it out, but he changed. He changed the
mm,
way that he recruits. He understood he kind of was willing to kind of change his principles to be pragmatic, to sign guys who may be more difficult to manage, to allow them more freedom in the way that they play, to allow them to shoot the ball, to get up and down the court, to play that kind of game, which is perfectly suited to that gym whereby the crowd is up and it's
yeah,
all
yeah,
tight and
yeah.
they're around and they're dunking and they're going up and down and they're playing with it. And for a coach to be kind of self-aware enough to kind of give up that kind of mentality of this is the way we should do it, this is me, and fit in with what he saw,
Mm,
I thought was really impressive. And they've been better as a result. They still just got to find a way of getting over the hump.
yeah, they do.
Uh,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I think in this one, I just think losing Thomas Edwards, having the rookies that they had, and then throwing in the fact that one, they had Lewis who had hardly played,
Mm,
so they were different with him to what they are without him, and two, they won 2 weeks ago,
mm,
and they won easy, even though they were up 22 weeks ago,
yeah, yeah,
and those things you put all of those things together, and it's gone in 15 minutes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
and so the question will be how many of those guys can you keep? Can you keep Robinson? Can you keep Lewis because they will come back better? The players, the second season is always the time. It's always the time when you have the best opportunity because
Mm,
they take the lumps and the players, if you can keep them. If not, you got to start all over again and it becomes
mm,
very difficult.
mm,
But where the markets are now, some of those guys are going to be looking at good offers because they're good players.
yeah. So that brings it to an end. Congratulations to Newcastle. Dave's going to crack open a second can of Diet Coke, I'm sure, to
Third
celebrate
can. But I was in
reliving it.
premium economy, Dan, you
Oh,
see,
yeah.
so I was getting free diet.
Free
I was getting
Diet Cokes. There we
those
go.
little 150 ml
Yeah.
cans, I was
This is how
churning
he
them up. And
rolls.
at the end, I mean, I'm gonna get the cleaning bill from British Airways for when I did the old and firing it up all over the ceiling.
Yeah,
I got a bit of
yeah.
I got a bit of a
That
few bucks.
distracted them from Law and Order sat next to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, flying around.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I'm happy for Mark because Mark's not won
Yeah.
either. I've talked about
No,
Andreas.
no.
Mark hasn't won either.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the other thing is, Mark and Andreas have put in an enormous amount of time
Mm.
of their own time
Yeah, yeah.
to national team program,
Yeah,
which they don't have to do,
yeah,
you know. And we should all be grateful for that because I know how
yeah,
much time
yeah, yeah,
Mark
yeah,
puts in. I know if
yeah,
Mark put that time in, I know Andreas is putting that time in as well.
yeah,
Um, so I'm happy the monkey's off his back, so no
yeah,
one's going to,
yeah, yeah,
so now he can, he now has legitimacy, and
yeah.
hopefully some of the Newcastle Eagles Facebook page in Sheffield can start understanding that they've actually got a pretty decent coach.
Yeah,
Um, and so I'm happy for him as well. I'm happy for
yeah,
everybody really,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I just feel a little bit sorry for Bristol because I've been there, and
yeah,
it is just it's everything you draw up is gone in about 12 minutes, and it's like
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah,
And there's no way of doing something right and keeping the faith of the players as well, because the players are
yeah,
all looking at you, changing things, and he's coming in, he's coming out, he's going in.
yeah.
Too many moving parts.
So, Dave will be back from Philadelphia next week, will you? We'll be on a Monday because Cheshire are at home. I know that much. I can't remember who they're playing, but they're sure that is it Bristol. Actually, I think is it Bristol. Have Bristol got Leicester? I think I'm following Bristol next weekend. I think they're at Leicester and Cheshire. Yes, they are, according to my little calendar
Well, I bet
there.
they'll be absolutely delighted to see you
See
at
me
the
again. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I suggest you bring Ro along with you and just
Yeah,
cheer him
yeah,
around.
yeah, yeah. Particularly when I
So they're
referred to
playing.
the Bristol
They're playing what?
fans as Plymouth fans by mistake, it was like, oh
They're
dear,
playing. They're
that's
playing in Estonia this week before coming back and playing Leicester and Cheshire.
away. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Coming off that week.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I'm now officially rooting for Bristol. I think. I mean, just that is just brutal.
It is pretty
That
brutal.
is that's just a brutal
Mm,
schedule.
mm,
Um. Wow. Okay.
mm.
Yeah, I'm back Sunday morning, so I'll be fully ready to go on
You'll be
Monday.
fully caught up by Monday evening when we get round to it. So, Newcastle fans celebrate freely all week while Dave's not here to police it, and we'll be back next week to do it all
Oh,
over again.
I just want to check my Wi-Fi was £12.99, so the SMB
Yeah.
expense account.
Somebody send him some cookies.
We open? No, no, I'm not asking for money. No, please don't do that. I probably have to declare it as
Yeah,
tax benefit.
yeah.
No, no. Anyway, yeah, it was fun. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Right. We'll see you all next week, people. Goodbye.